Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We got the fearsome foursome here, and we have a great show tonight. It is loaded. Let me give you an overview of what the topics we talked about: baseball in Bristol. We're going to talk about the Little League Classic last night featuring New York Yankees and Detroit Tigers. That was a pretty good game. Mm-hmm. Chicago White Sox eliminated early. Surprise? No. Matthewtkachuk, Jaysontatum throwing out the first pitch in St. Louis. We're talking about, and we're going to make sure that every night Ashton has an opportunity to feel at home when we talk about troytulowitzki, by the way, back in college. And then finally, we're going to revisit a stat that we talked about earlier in the year about the San Francisco Giants and the Cubs reaching 100,000 runs. That, to me, is pretty impressive. So with that said, let me introduce the crew. Eric Katz, welcome back, partner.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Ashton, as always, great to have you here.
It's always fun when we get to jump on here and talk baseball.
And George Eichhorn, long time no see.
Yeah, good to be back on. Great seeing you guys.
All right, so let's get to it. Right, let's get right to it. Baseball in Bristol. You can expect about 140,000 plus fans to see the Reds versus the Braves. Both those two cities are about 4 hours away from Bristol. So, Eric, give me your thoughts about baseball on a racetrack. That one.
I think it's unique. I think that the baseball's kind of doing what football has traditionally done, which is play their game on something odd. I know football has done the NASCAR football. Specifically, college football has done the NASCAR track before. I know that college football has also done. There's a couple bowl games at Major League Baseball parks like Wrigley Field and Fenway Park, and I think it's a great way for baseball to really just venture out from what they're used to doing, which is your standard diamond and roughly same stadium, except for maybe you go to Puerto Rico, Japan, Dominican Republic, whatever, every now and then, or these days London or Paris. But I think it's great for the game, it's a great opportunity to kind of see them kind of do something a little more unique, like something you wouldn't traditionally think of as a baseball stadium.
Okay, Ashton.
I mean, it's fun. It's gimmicky. I think I'm more likely to watch it. It's probably, I assume it's going to be a nationally televised game. You're going to get to see cool aerial views, seeing how cool or odd it may look. I know I've seen some renderings. I'm curious to know how many tickets they're going to sell and what seats they're going to deem worthy of watching this from, because I can only imagine there's going to be some terrible seats with really bad views. I think this is going to be, it's good for baseball, good marketing wise. It's, more people are going to watch this game and be focused on this game. I think it's going to be a lot more fun to watch than to actually go to, depending on where your seats are. Some seats are going to be high up and really far away from the action, but I think a lot of people are just going to buy tickets to go to this just to say they were there because, by default, I think it's going to be the biggest capacity baseball game in history. It almost has to be. And, I think it's cool, and it's going to, I assume, be copied and happen around other NASCAR venues across the country. And, I guess it's a home game for the Braves, I guess. And it's just them giving up one home game to do this. And I think it's going to be pretty cool.
George.
Yeah, it sounds really, really exciting to me. This is a very, very dynamic move by Major League Baseball and the teams involved. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of work to construct the field there at Bristol. But, the fans are hungry for this. We've seen it happen before with other special, unique places that Major League Baseball has been played. And then, of course, they've taken the game across the world on other occasions. But, in a speedway, and Scott and I have covered many races. He's covered more than me. It's just exciting. Every time you have a race at Bristol, it's an exciting event. But now it's going to be topping over 100-some thousand fans. It's going to be incredible for Bristol to have a game in 2025. Hats off to all the people that made this happen, from MLB and, of course, NASCAR and the Bristol Motor Speedway. Sounds great.
Yeah, I've actually been to that speedway. I was there visiting a friend, and her and I took 4 laps that we donated money during Christmas time to charity. It was pretty neat the way that track was banked. Here's what you're going to see there. Number one, okay, many years ago, the Dodgers played over at the LA Coliseum.
Yeah.
Before they moved into Dodger Stadium. I believe that was probably the biggest crowd ever when they played at the LA Coliseum. But Ashton, you're on to something here, okay? And here's what you're really on to. They not only going to want to be there to see the event, but okay, what you have is you're going to see a lot of scoreboards around there in the areas for which that you have obstruction or you can't see, nosebleed as we call them. So they're going to have time to prepare for what they're going to do so that as many people can see it. But you're right, people are going to go there because they know it's an event, a once in a lifetime, well, at least once in a lifetime at Bristol anyways. And we'll see what other NASCAR venues go out there and do the same thing. But here's what gets interesting about this, and that's this. Number one, MLB will be able to sell its merchandise, and NASCAR can sell its merchandise. And you want to talk about money piling in from not one but two sports, that's when it gets really, really, really interesting. So, yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Well, one thing I'm thinking about too is it could be a trial run to see if Major League Baseball could actually work in Tennessee. I know they've been talking about it in Nashville. I know their minor league team draws well, but this could be also a nice little, I think, quote unquote, time trial for Major League Baseball to see how see how popular the game can get in that market.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Candy's got a great fact up there. Why don't you put it up there, Candy? This one has a lot. George, you get to read it.
Candy says the largest crowd to ever attend an MLB game was 115,300 who watched an exhibition between the Boston Red Sox and the Los Angeles Dodgers March 29, 2008 at the LA Memorial Coliseum. This game set a Guinness World Record and is the only baseball game to definitively exceed 100,000 attendees. Good point.
There you go. LA Coliseum. Got back in the 50s just recently. So now obviously another attendance record could be broken. So great stuff. All right. Well, last night, and I say this, the new look Detroit Tigers defeated the New York Yankees in the Little League Baseball Classic in front of 2,520 some fans. Aaron Judge called Tarikskubal the best pitcher in the game right now. It's not fun facing a guy like that, but it's fun competing against the best. Well, you know what, Eric, you're the Yankee guy here. What are your thoughts about what we saw last night?
Oh, terrific game. Can't complain. Obviously it's great for the sport to get out to the home of the Little League World Series. I think it's great that they were able to kind of connect more kids with the big stars. I think baseball is doing a lot better of that, trying to kind of grow the game a little bit in that way, where kids got a dream experience chilling with Aaron Judge. It almost looked like the Beatles were in town, as they described it. And overall, it's just great for the game. Obviously, the players clearly enjoy it because they remember being of that age, playing when Little League baseball was much more popular than it is now. But it's overall just great for the game, great for the fans. So I mean, I'm kind of happy that that baseball has taken upon themselves to connect kids with the stars more than they ever had before.
Okay, Ashton.
MLB needs to take the opportunity to just push for Aaron Judge to kind of be the face of the league. Obviously being an MVP, still being an MVP candidate player, playing for your most valuable franchise in baseball, and just having the class to show the respect for Skubal. And, rather than going out like today, it's more trash talk, and which that can be fun and everything, but he just comes out, shows total class. Obviously nobody wants to face the better players. It's easier to pad your stats facing lesser competition, but complete respect he's shown to Skubal right here.
Well,
George?
Yeah, it was a great game, guys. It really was. It was the only disadvantage I saw was the fact that the teams, it would be nice if they could work it out where the teams had a travel day before the game instead of cramming all the stuff in with the kids in the same day. But it is what it is. It was terrific to see all the fans, all the kids there, their uniforms and attending the game. And like you said, the personal one-on-ones that the players got, to talk to the kids and to horse around with them and sign autographs. And I think ESPN did a really, really good job. They brought guys into the broadcast booth to talk to. Skubal didn't get the win, obviously, for Detroit, but the young Tigers, especially a couple of those guys they just brought up, had a heck of a performance and won the game in extra innings. So from a Tigers perspective, I heard that it was their youngest lineup that they fielded in one game. I think you got to go way back to 2015 or something like that, as they're trying to rebuild, in Detroit. But yeah, all around, it was a great event. I know the Yankees are frustrated, probably, obviously, because they didn't win, but it meant a lot to baseball. It really did.
I mean, when you look at last night, I love watching Jazz Chisholm actually on the air, my Marlin there. This guy's, to me, New York's getting a treat with Jazz Chisholm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you look at the young players in the lineup, you got Jace Jung, I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you got Doug Sweeney manning the one side of the infield. Those guys made some pretty good plays, and they're, to me, they look pretty good. I mean, ajhinch has something there, and I think he knows it. I know they made a couple moves last week when they let Gio Urshela go to bring up these guys, and then you have Spencer Torkelson coming back, Riley Green coming back, Kerry Carpenter. So I don't know if the Tigers are going to be able to get in the playoffs, but they've been certainly hampered by injuries, and with Spencer Torkelson struggling, getting 2.5 months to get it figured out. This team, you never know. I've seen crazier things happen, but ajhinch, to me, has done a really good job. But the thing that I liked about this matchup more than anything was the Detroit Tigers were formed in 1901, the oldest franchise in the American League, and the Yankees 1903. You could not have put two better franchises on there that have more tradition than those two. Yeah, we'll talk about the Boston Red Sox fans might disagree with me, but the Detroit Tigers are older than the Boston Red Sox. 1901, look it up. And the Yankees, and when you look at the Baseball Hall of Fame, okay, you also look at the fact that Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb were the first inductees coming from those respective franchises. So, I mean, that's a lot. It really is. All right, let's go back to the chat room. George, you're going to man it. Good evening, Turbo Jetum.
Okay, good evening. Okay, Candy. But in the end, the major leaguers seem to benefit as much or even more than the little leaguers, because Cora believes that it's a one-day reminder of why they fell in love with the game. There's no talk about swing decisions or analytics, no coaches. Cora said, there's nothing about money. You're thinking, I remember when it was this fun. Good stuff, Candy.
Yeah.
And Cora.
Any close? I was a great game to watch. I really, really, really enjoyed watching the whole thing. I played Little League ball myself for 6 years and never get those days as a catcher. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I remember. I remember playing Little League myself. Played for a long time. Obviously, as you start to move up kind of in the ranks of baseball, whether you play Little League early on or even are fortunate enough to get to the highest level, the pressure just intensifies. And I think that the players just benefit from being able to talk about those days. It's just an opportunity for them to kind of just, it's just an opportunity for them to really just see how it was, albeit less, baseball was less techie back then, I assure you. But it's just a great opportunity. It's just great for the players, great for the game, and great for the fans.
Yeah, it really is. It was a fun night to watch. And when you have two franchises as old as the Detroit Tigers and New York Yankees, Joe Torre definitely got it right. In fact, next year's matchup, you're going to have the Mets and the Mariners. Joe Torre announced that as well. All right, Candy, we're going to put you in for a station break. Go ahead.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see a red subscribe button, hit us, like us, share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk hockey on Fire Up Florida. We talk baseball on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights, we talk football on Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange. Thursday nights is Fire Up. You just never know what we're going to be talking about on either of those. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Otherwise, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last December. It is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by none other than Scott Motor City Mad Mouth Morganroth And the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. Get your copy today. It talks about how media has changed over the 40 plus years Scott's been in the business. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. You can also listen to us wherever you get your podcast, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, you name it. But go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can see the writings of Scott and George. You can see my pictures. You can also see updates from the Marlins, the Panthers. You can get transcripts right now from the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Detroit Lions, and then all of our local South Florida colleges, USF, FAU, the Florida Gators, and the Miami Hurricanes send us content. So go check out our website today. We also have a link to a store on there that you can buy South Florida Tribune merchandise or Motor City Madmouth merchandise. Scott also does a show, a one-on-one interview show on nofilter.net. Watch for more details to come. Back to you, Scott.
All right, Candy, well done. So with that said, we're going to go to the south side, and it's been a really, really rough year. I believe pedrogriful was fired recently. Of course, I can certainly understand why. The Chicago White Sox are eliminated from playoff contention with 38 games remaining. Ouch. So anyways, Eric, let's talk about what's going on the south side. I know you recently watched Aaron Judge hit his 300th home run, but there's an awful lot going on the south side.
Oh boy, it's a mess. It's there's like, aside from Crochet, there's really no bright spot on that team. Typically during a rebuild, you'll have like a bright spot on a team that's having a great year who at least makes it like tolerable to watch. But nah, this team, aside from maybe Crochet, who they're starting to limit his innings a little bit. There is just nothing really about this team. It's practically a dead team, and it's just probably the worst baseball I've ever seen. I mean, there have been plenty of bad teams, but none have really have done it as bad as the Chicago White Sox this year. It's no surprise they got eliminated from the playoffs in August. Actually, you could probably argue that they were really eliminated in April.
Yeah, it's unbelievable action. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, Chicago's a great sports town, and just recently it's been really disappointing across the board. I mean, you can name any Chicago franchise, but they were officially eliminated on August 17th. That's the earliest a team has been eliminated from playoff contention in the wild card or divisional era. And it's pretty sad to say. I mean, we're talking about the Yankees and Tigers, just two really impressive franchises, and the White Sox, they're one of those historical franchises, even, for controversy more or less, but just one of the older franchises in baseball, and stuff like this is happening. Just terrible, terrible franchise, or not franchise in general, but I guess right now they're terribly ran, but just bad baseball. And yeah, it's a shame to see.
It sure is. And of course, they had that recent 21-game losing streak, which led to the firing of pedrogriful. So
at the end of that losing streak, they fired him basically within a day of him getting a win.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. So, all right, Eric, you're out that way. Do you think Grady Sizemore's going to? I mean, you talk about a tough situation for a new manager to get involved.
Well, Grady's got really nothing to lose, so he's at least going to try his hand at being a manager, because right now he was a coach brought in, but he's really got nothing to lose, so he's going to just give it his best and kind of be a tryout for other teams, because the White Sox said they're going to go outside for their manager. I'm sure if Grady does okay, I mean, okay would probably be really good for the White Sox these days. I think he'll at least be granted an interview, I think, but I don't see him being the guy. The White Sox have already said that they're planning on going outside and finding somebody.
Okay. George?
Well, it is a shame, really. I mean, Detroit's in that division with them, along with Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Look at these teams that improved and continue to play good ball. Minnesota, Cleveland, Kansas City, great year this year. And of course, Detroit is trying to create some activity and action here. And then not only that, but the White Sox then have the attendance problem hanging over them. As we all know, they're in a very tough part of Chicago.
Yeah.
The south side of Chicago has been unfortunately racked by gangs and crime and stuff like that. So they're in a real tough situation. In fact, when is the last time we all saw a team announce, like they did the other day, they're going to reduce ticket prices already on some seats at least for next season? I mean, it's a real sad situation. I really don't know how many years it's going to take, guys, to to turn this team around. As a fan, like we talked about, Scott, you mentioned about the Yankees and Tigers, and of course the Red Sox, rich history, and the White Sox have got to be in there too, and yet they just can't seem to get anything straight. It was a disaster this season, and boy, oh boy, they just I don't know. They need a lot of work, and they need a lot of great players. And like you said, Eric, who are you going to root for? I mean, the guys there that they got on the team, there's no stars. There's nobody, yeah, you got a couple of guys with double-digit home runs and some guys with 40 or 50 RBIs, but you got no really stars that the fans want to come and see. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, here's the thing about here's why the White Sox are in the place that they're in. Now, it's not like they made bad decisions all the way to Kingdom Come, like the Pittsburgh Pirates have over the years. I wouldn't call them Pittsburgh Pirate bad. What happened was the White Sox, 2021, I guess you could say 2020 as well. They had a window, and they built a pretty good ball team that really was supposed to be a contending team, but they missed their window. And this is what happens when they miss their window. They got all sorts of guys got hurt, which, unfortunately injuries do happen. And I think that was a big reason why the Sox got into the place that they were in. Another reason was, although letting Jose Abreu go was the right decision, the problem was they had nobody else to really take over as that leader. Like, eloyjimenez, the guy can't even lead the guy can't even lead himself to stay healthy. Andrew Vaughn, a little too young there. Lucas Giolito, not really, but now he's not. I don't think he's even in baseball anymore. I think that their biggest problem was they just never had any leadership in that clubhouse after Jose Abreu left. Abreu was the guy holding it together in the clubhouse. And once they let Abreu leave in free agency, which granted, right move, they just never had his. They just never found his replacement. And so those are the couple of reasons why the Sox are in the position they're in, aside from the fact that Jerry wouldn't spend money to support his core.
Well, I can tell you right now, Ozzieguillen says he has no plan to get involved with that, and he's the best thing that they had there in a long time.
Oh yeah.
And he goes down as a trivia question as a manager who led them to their last championship. So Ozzieguillen, to me, you need more characters like him in the game. You just have to know that when you're in Miami, you don't talk about a specific country in the manner that he did in the wrong place. And I don't want to go ahead and retract on that. But, Ozzieguillen to me is what I consider the Billy Martin or Lou Piniella of managers. There aren't enough of those fiery characters in the game. And I always liked Ozzie. He's certainly a media guy. Billy Martin, of course, we all know he was a quick turnaround artist. And Lou Piniella made a good living as a manager as well as a player. And I think that's what the sport is missing nowadays. So anybody else want to add on to this? It is unfortunate they had 38 games remaining with all these big losing streaks. And I guess Jason Benetti, George, got out at the right time. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah.
Well, even Steve Stone is starting to think about getting out because he's tired of watching the pile of crap on the field. Here's the thing though with the Sox, what it came down to was Jerry Reinsdorf has this habit of keeping guys longer than he really should. Even with his other franchise, the Chicago Bulls, he kept Jerry Krause around a little longer than he should have. He also kept Kenny Williams around forever, even though the guy really should have been fired in 2011, 2012.
Right.
And I think, I think that in this case, even though Jerry like rarely ever meddles, I think forcing Tony La Russa onto Rick Hahn kind of really killed it for Hahn. And, just because Jerry felt bad about firing him, because obviously we saw what Tony was able to do with the Oakland A's and also the St. Louis Cardinals. But, I think what it came down to was just, they just missed their window. Injuries, the wrong manager, the whole deal, and also just not letting, Rick Hahn maybe wanted another guy. I mean, yeah, he wanted Grifol this time around, but he never got the guy he truly wanted the first time around.
Yeah.
Well, again, like I say, you're closer to that situation than any of us since you live right down the road. All right. Katie, I think we brought you on already, didn't we, for the station identification, if I remember right? So
Yes.
with that said, let's go on to Matthew Tkachuk and Jason Tatum throughout the first pitch in St. Louis. Okay, Eric, what are your thoughts about those two guys getting an opportunity to go to St. Louis and throwing out the first pitch? Classy move by St. Louis.
Well, Jason Tatum's from St. Louis for one thing, and I remember him when he was actually in high school when I was in college, 2 hours away from him, and I remember him committing to Duke before obviously he went and obviously became a star in the NBA like he is now. Being good for them to bring back the hometown guys. I mean, what more can you do? Tatum won a championship this year and is obviously the franchise player for the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm surprised even to this date that you don't have an NBA team in St. Louis, but that team became the St. Louis Hawks. George?
Yeah, and it was good to see them out there. And then I know that there was a real nice story written by ESPN, which showed a picture of them when they were on the school bus together, way back. So the fact that Jason Tatum and Matthew Tkachuk are coming off of their winning championships was even more fun because, like I said, they back in the day, they took a bus together to school. And they've been friends. I did not know that whole story. So I'm glad you had that, Scott, as one of our topics today, because here you got two guys at the top of their sport. They both have championship rings, or they'll get the rings, obviously, in a few months. But Tatum and Tkachuk, just great stuff. And, the Cardinals have always been such a premier. Oh, my gosh. You talk about a great town, that's great that they have that connection. And then obviously to show up together at the Cardinals was real cool. I liked it.
What about you, Ashton?
Very similar to a couple of guys here in Dallas with Matthew Stafford and Clayton Kershaw, both playing the same high school, same little league. I don't think they both won their championships the same year like this. Very close together. And then at one point it was interesting. Clayton Kershaw was the highest paid player in baseball at the same time. Matthew Stafford was the highest paid player in the NFL back in the day, both coming from the same high school. It's just a great story, and it's really interesting when you, out of all the hometowns and high schools, you have two guys. It's just how rare it is to have one person play professional sports from one hometown, let alone two that went to school together.
Well, on our first show, Fire Up Florida, we talked about Bill Zito taking the Stanley Cup to Milwaukee. So it's good to see, Matthew Tkachuk taking it to St. Louis. Of course, St. Louis did win a Stanley Cup a few years back. And then Jason Tatum taking an NBA title to a place where very few people know about the St. Louis Hawks, but more power to them. St. Louis always gets it right. I don't care. That's what I've always thought. I don't know whether St. Louis could ever get another NBA team. I think they're tapped out on their professional sports. When you think of the fact that they have the Cardinals and they have the Blues, it's a shame that the Rams left. And the Cardinals, I understood the first rendition because they had stadium issues, but the Rams and NBA never really returned there. So, all right, well, you know what? No show would be complete with Ashton on here unless we have a Texas topic. And I like this one. George could probably relate to this guy a little bit. Troytulowitzki is back in college baseball coaching. He was definitely a fine player with the Rockies, a real stud for that matter. Okay.
When healthy.
And now, yeah, right. And now he's with the Texas Longhorns. What are your thoughts about Troytulowitzki being with the Texas Longhorns, Ashton?
Yeah, he was with the Longhorns as an assistant coach in from 2020 to 2022, and director of player development in 2024. So it only makes sense that he rejoins his staff as an assistant coach. Texas's 2 highest home run totals in school history are with Tulowitzki on their coaching staff: 128 homers in 2022 and 112 in 2024. So say what you want about that stat, but it makes it pretty obvious that he helps out this team. And obviously the Longhorns are all in, trying to go for back to the College World Series, and Tulowitzki's I think is a great addition to that staff.
Well, George, you're familiar with him in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I sure am, Scott. Troytulowitzki was inducted into the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame on June the 20th. But unfortunately, he could not make the ceremony. He had plans to come, but things got changed at the last minute. So we were really, really, those of us that were there, and there were over 400 people in this hall to induct him. We were really kind of, sad, because he had planned to be there. He had his tickets all bought, but he had a personal matter that he had to attend to. I know he's got, a son that's playing baseball right now. I think he's around 10 years old, maybe 11 or something, his son. But anyways, Troy, yeah, I've always admired him. He's had a good, solid career, as we know. 5-time All-Star selection, Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger. I mean, you go down the list, All-Star. And, he's been really, really a good guy and a good acquisition, like you said, for Texas and their program. He's in the Hall of Fame and in the Polish Hall of Fame. And he certainly wasn't happy that he couldn't stay for the ceremony, but we still put him in. He's a good guy, and maybe someday he could come back and visit. The Hall of Fame is located, in suburban Detroit here.
Yeah, well, what city is the National Polish Hall of Fame? Might as well give him a little bit of a plug tonight.
Oh, well, yeah, Scott. It's at the corner of DeQuinder and Maple, which is the city of Troy, Michigan, okay. one of the biggest cities in surrounding Detroit. Right. And the Hall of Fame shares the building with the American Polish Congress, which is very active in Detroit, American Polish Cultural Center. So yeah, it's pretty, it's accessible in Detroit's eastern suburbs. Yeah.
Well, I'll share this clip with our friends over there. I voted a few times, and it's a really worthwhile organization to acknowledge.
Thank you. Yeah, we're glad you're part of our voting block. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
It really is. So yeah, please share this with them as well. All right, Eric, some thoughts about Troytulowitzki.
Oh, he's a great player. I mean, when healthy, that was his biggest problem over the years. The guy would have like one major injury after the other. I think he was a Yankee for a second there. Obviously he had a great career with the Rockies, but good for him. I mean, now he's clearly had found success coaching at the University of Texas, which very renowned baseball program. I think it's great for him. Obviously, he's one. I think had he stayed healthy, he might have had a chance there.
Hey, let me ask you a question, Ashton. Didn't Augie Garrido, wasn't he the manager over there? If I remember right.
Yeah, long time.
How do you like that? I know a little bit about some of these teams here.
Yeah.
Augie Garrido is a legendary manager of the University.
Yeah, for sure.
If anybody's ever been to that University of Texas campus, it's unbelievable. I haven't seen a game there, but I did cover a basketball game a few years back in Austin with Texas State against Texas at the old Irwin Center, I think it is. I don't know if it's there anymore or whether they're on the verge of they're building a new building there. But so there you go, Ashton. Augie Garrido. Are you surprised?
I mean, he's a legendary coach. He should be close to,
Yeah, but are you surprised I knew about him?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised because I think lots about baseball.
I mean,
I got something on that.
Is that kind of an insult to you? I don't know. You put me in a bad position. If I say I'm surprised, you'd be like, you should know about baseball, shouldn't you?
Ashton.
Oh no, I put you in a bad position. I'm just letting you know a little bit
Yeah.
more about the Longhorn state than most people think.
That-
No, you're in a really good position with me. You have nothing to worry about that.
Austin, there's
Yeah.
a lot. Austin, there's a lot that Augie Garrido said that isn't family friendly.
For sure.
That's
Yeah.
not the point. All he did was win
That's
there.
the
I'm not gonna say
controversial side of him. Yeah.
yeah, but the man did win. That's all I can say. I mean, I'm not
For
gonna
sure.
sit here. I agree on
he didn't
everybody's
have-
point of view.
It was obviously I wouldn't even call it controversial. I mean, if you look at it in nowadays lens, yeah, maybe, but it was just how things were done at the time. It was everybody was doing it, so I wouldn't go. Could he get away with it now? Probably not. But
No, not now. Yeah, it was different. Yeah, it was a different time.
he had a lot. Although he had a lot of stars in Major League Baseball, I'm going to tell you that right now. I think Roger Clemens was one of them.
Yeah.
20
sure.
years. 20 years as manager there.
Yeah.
824 wins and 428 losses for Augie. Great career. 20 seasons with the Longhorns. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
There you go.
legend.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, college baseball, especially big in these parts, but Texas has a good program. And I'm just giving you, I'm kidding with you, Ashton. I don't think when I showed you what we were going to talk about, you'd ever think I'd mention an Augie Garrido
That's true. Yeah.
last troytulowitzki, but it is what it is. It's all fun. All right. Well, you know what? We're going to revisit a topic that we talked about a little bit in May. And this is interesting because obviously the numbers are a little bit more than they were when we talked about it. I still find myself amazed that that these teams had 100,000 runs. The Chicago Cubs, when we talked about this in May, had 101,907 runs scored, and the San Francisco Giants eclipsed that number at 100,006. We know obviously a little bit more. But Eric, when you put that stat into perspective, what comes to your mind about a team scoring 100,000 runs, even though these teams have been around for a while?
We've had a lot of great offensive players. I mean, the Cubs have certainly had their fair share with Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, even in Sammy Sosa, and other great guys like that. Obviously, the Giants with Barry Bonds and Willie Mays, Willie McCovey. I mean, it just shows you had a lot of great offensive. You had a lot of great offensive players in your team's history. So no surprise there.
What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, just piggyback off what Eric said. I mean, you can add Sandberg to the Cubs, Mel Ott to the Giants. It's just a lot. I mean, you can be around for over 100 years, and I'm assuming these stats are since 1900. That's usually when you want to, they start keeping stats, but these franchises have been around since the 1800s. But just a lot of great players. Just obviously, when you're around for over 100 years, you're going to accumulate these stats. But it's just a testament to how great and legendary these teams are. Because I mean, there were more teams back then, but these are the teams that didn't fold, didn't go defunct, didn't end up changing their name. I know the Giants were in New York, but they're still the same Giants team. The Chicago Cubs are still the Cubs. It's not that there were so few teams back then. There were a lot less, but these teams just continued and stayed in the major league ranks and were able to be successful.
Yeah. It's amazing how you talk about the Giants being in New York. I saw a picture on Facebook one time, and I saw how close Yankee Stadium and the Polo Grounds were.
Just across the bridge.
Yeah, right. I couldn't believe it. I knew they were close, but I didn't know they were that close. But
my grandfather went across that bridge to go to games there.
Oh, is that right? No kidding.
Yeah.
All right, George.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're talking about one hell of a franchise, no question about it. Tigers, I think, go back to 1901. The Giants actually were once called the New York Gothams, and then they became the New York Giants in 1885. Wow. And I think of the same thing you guys have mentioned. I mean, the great hitters of all time. I mean, the great Williemays, who unfortunately we just lost a couple months ago. And the fans in New York were not happy. I mean, they weren't happy with the owner of the Dodgers, obviously, O'Malley, taking his team to L.A., and the Giants fans were not happy when they moved to San Francisco. So, you're talking about institutional teams here. not only the Yankees, and then of course the Mets were an expansion team, but the Giants, yeah, great teams. I think in total they got 8 World Series titles. I think I saw,
They do.
but yeah, great teams, great hitters. That's a lot of runs to score. Okay, but man, oh man, Monty Irvin, Willie Mays, Mel Ott, Christy Matheson, John McGraw. I mean, just some great players they had.
Well, has everybody spoken on this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I look at this type of number, I tend to go to ballparks a little bit. And I've been to Candlestick before. And the way that wind really twirls is unbelievable. I've covered the Lions and the 49ers there. And I'm going to tell you something. The way that wind in Candlestick Bay is one thing. Of course, now the Giants are at, I think, Oracle Park across the bay, not far away. But when you talk about the windy nature of San Francisco, it's one thing. And then of course we all know that Wrigley Field, for the most part, it's always been a hitters friendly park. So, and
windy.
What's that?
And windy.
Yeah, and windy.
Off of Lake Michigan. I want you to go ahead and sit by that lake over there, and tell me how the wind feels.
Well, let me tell you, I've been to both those stadiums. You want to even though this isn't baseball related, go to Soldier Field and see how quickly you'll freeze there. Luckily, I've been in the press box. I haven't had to watch the game out there, but let me tell you, when they grant you field access for 4 or 5, 6 minutes, and you're wearing 3 pairs of socks and a pair of hiking boots, that's not no fun situation. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, huh?
I've been to both stadiums when it's cold outside.
I've been to Soldier Field too once as a fan. Yep. Yeah, and it was cold.
Awful.
Although I got to tell you, when I was covering those games, I love the way the Bears used to make us these box lunches over in the press boxes. You knew every time you were going to a Bears game that they'd make the best box lunches. There's really not a lot of room in there, but it was so cozy and it was nice. And then you get on the field, the only way that Barry Sanders was going to have a tough game is if you stuck him in dead winter. And then all of a sudden, and of course it doesn't help when the Bears have time of possession 40 minutes with the Lions at 20. But
and a great defense.
Yeah, that didn't help either if you're a Lions person. But
yeah,
I guess it's only fitting that San Francisco and Chicago do have these numbers. And so, Ashley, let me ask you, you were kind of dancing around a little bit. Maybe I want more of a detailed answer. How much do you feel that ballparks play into these run totals?
A lot for sure. I mean, it's the one sport that the field dimensions can be different. I mean, it also plays to a point. I mean, if the Rockies have had a baseball team for 100 years, they would probably be up on that list too, just because, you can hit more home runs in there. I mean, it definitely plays a part in it because, you're not going to score near as many runs. No, at least not in home run form, in pitchers' parks. So it definitely helps.
Yeah, I'll tell you one pitcher that loved hitting in that ballpark was Mike Hampton. Remember him going back there? What? When he went to Colorado, he knew what he was getting into. I know that my wins and losses aren't going to be good. I know my ERA ain't going to be high, but he wanted a piece of that lumber, and he knew how to hit him deep. So.
I do remember Hampton played for the Astros, the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, and then he goes to Colorado.
That late in his career.
Yeah, of course, that's when he was ready to hit home runs instead of stop them. So
it's
doing it at Coors Field.
I mean, look at a great American ballpark now in Cincinnati. How well the ball travels there, and same with Philadelphia.
Oh, is that well? Yeah, I understand that Philly was always a hitter's ballpark.
Yeah.
I didn't know about Great American Ballpark. The only time I ever saw the game in Cincinnati was over at Riverfront Stadium back in the day when they had all those cookie cutter stadiums.
Me too. Yeah, I saw one game there. Yeah,
the ball travels well, and the ball travels very well actually in Cincinnati. It travels very well in Cincinnati. Just it's probably better than you might think. Actually, I think I saw somewhere as far as ballpark factor, it was like one of the top 5 ballparks to hit in.
I'm not debating. I wouldn't debate that in a million years. You got Riverfront Stadium right off the river, so where there's water, balls carry. I don't know about the moisture part of this whole thing. I'm not one of those types of people that goes into details about all that, but I do know that in specific markets, depending on teams. It's just when I looked at the different two teams, and that's why I wanted to bring it up to you guys. I don't know if you had spoken about it before, but not tonight's a pretty decent night to do it. That the Giants and the Cubs, to me, were definitely appropriate, and who knows how many other teams are going to inch closer to that mark. And when we do find them out, I'm sure we'll bring them up as well.
And what's amazing about the Giants before they came to San Francisco was the Polo Grounds was a very pitcher friendly ballpark too. It was practically a hitter's graveyard. I mean, there were certain parts of the park where you really had to give the ball a whack. Was it really? I didn't know that. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't
know that either.
It's very deep center. I mean, very deep center field.
Well, it's good to know. I mean, nobody's ever doubting your baseball knowledge anyways. You got more baseball knowledge for a guy under 30 than I've ever seen. I mean, geez, when I first met this guy, Ashton, he'd keep me on the phone 3 or 4 hours there giving me baseball numbers. And all of a sudden, I was letting him talk because I ran out of things to say. And for me to run out of things to say, well, this kid's educating me. Eric, you know what? If anybody has an ego talking baseball to Eric, you might as well take that ego and just treat it like an actual balloon and then pop it because this guy will pop your ego real quick with the knowledge that you have. I'm impressed.
Mark Mancini knows better.
That's another story. Now, you know what, Harrison, if you knew who this guy was, when Eric went on the show with Mark Mancini, I thought it was actually Mike Tyson, Peter McNeely, if you know anything about quick knockouts. Yeah. Eric made me proud. I view guys like Eric as my young, what do they call him?
He didn't say anything for the rest
of the
night.
Yeah, protege. That was the word. Thanks. How we know you can pick me up when I need you there, Mr. Ashton? Yeah, those were fun battles to watch. So we're all over the map today. We go from 100,000 runs all the way to Bristol. Anywhere else we could go, Ashton?
I mean, the Rangers aren't doing well at all, but Corey Seager's hit a couple more home runs tonight, so there's at least that bright spot in the season.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the Rangers probably a little bit more. I know they were very.
No, it's okay. We don't need to talk Rangers.
You can talk about Aaron Judge.
All right. Well,
Aaron Judge.
Well, I actually do have a new segment that I'm going to introduce tonight. Okay. It's called Parting Shots. This parting shot doesn't have to apply to baseball. How does that sound? So, Eric, you can go ahead and lead off. Give me your parting shot.
I mean, it was first time, probably a cool moment for me was seeing the other day at the White Sox game, seeing Aaron Judge hit his 300th home run. I mean, the fastest man to do it. I mean, it's amazing what he's done considering he played like I think 3 years in college and spent 3 years in the minors and came up when he was 26 years old, which is you should start players nowadays start hitting their prime by then. But the fact that he burst onto the scene and has been able to do what he's done, ranging from hitting 62 home runs a couple years ago to this year, giving us a nice encore with I think he'll probably end up in the 50s again this year in home runs. And the fact that he's doing it with the fact that he's just like, everybody loves him. You don't have to be a Yankee fan, but you gotta respect what Judge has done and what he means to the game. I know, Ashton, you talked about baseball possibly trying to make him the face of the franchise, but you got to respect everything Aaron Judge is doing.
Okay, George.
My parting shot is something that was probably noticeable to any Detroit fan. Yesterday during the game, they showed a ceremony that happened before the game, and it was the Little League, whatever he was, president or executive director of the Little League was retiring. So they had a little ceremony out on the field. Rob Manfred, Steinbrenner, and the man on the right, who ESPN didn't even mention his name, and I'll tell you, it was Christopher Ilitch, the owner of the Tigers. So ESPN, I know you did a great job covering that game. Don't get me wrong, but next time that happens, please have the script ready so that Carl or whoever's announcing would say all four people's names and not ignore the owner of the Detroit Tigers, please. Thank you. That's my parting shot.
Okay, Ashton, what's yours?
My parting shot is a plea to the Rangers organization to go ahead and call up Kumar Rocker and maybe even Jack Leiter. I know Leiter was up earlier in the season and he didn't do very well, but he's doing a lot better now. Regained his focus. Kumar Rocker's just dominating in AA right now. You obviously have pitchers injuries. I know they're in a situation where it's hard just to say, okay, we give up for the year. We're just going to play for next year with Bochy as manager. You want to make sure he stays around another year, and you have a lot of stars on that team, but they're over 10 games out. It's time. You got healthy, and then now you're starting to get more injuries. It's like, let's just go look at next season and look at some of these young guys that you drafted who there have been setbacks, but now I think it's time. Call those two guys up. Let's see what they have this year so you can go to next year with, at least an answer or some confidence.
Okay, my parting shot actually goes to ESPN. Once again, two more on-air people go down by the wayside. Robert Griffin III, I never cared for him anyway, so I'm not sweating over that one. But the one that bothers me a little bit is Samantha Ponder. This young lady to me is a very talented young lady. And I can tell you right now, she will find a job awfully quick. How can you keep firing people that you learn to build a following with? What do you really have to replace her? Oh, I'm sure they'll find maybe Laura Rutledge or Mike Greenberg, but Samantha Ponder will land another job all day long. Very professional. I don't know the story behind the firing, but to me, I don't understand what this network is really trying to do. I don't. I mean, you find a talented person, and all of a sudden, just like they're gone. Did she say something out there that probably alienated them? This is a network that once employed Rush Limbaugh, and all of a sudden they got in and they let him go very quickly too. If you're going to hire somebody, you better know what you're buying, like they should have with Rush Limbaugh. But Samantha Ponder's done a pretty decent job after Chris Berman left. Part of sustainability in our industry is you want people that you can identify with and that show up on a consistent basis that you look forward to seeing. And, every network should take that into consideration. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we are some of the big conglomerates, but the one thing I take pride in the people that appear on this show or any of the shows that we have, I want people that are going to show up week in and week out. And every once in a while, if you're off, no big deal, life happens. But we're here to build an identity. Okay, where everybody looks forward to seeing us week in and week out, and Samantha Ponder is just a talented young lady, and I don't know what ESPN was thinking. I'm sure more news will come out. So, Sam, I hope you land, and I hope you land really quick, because in my opinion, I've been around a lot of great women commentators, and I think the one that always will stand out to me is Leslie Visser. I got to know Andrea Kramer recently, and there's a lot of great women out there. Samantha Ponder, her best days are ahead wherever she decides to go. So, with that said, this concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We'll let Eric. Candy's going to come in and take care of our end, but Eric, go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can follow my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I talk all things baseball.
George?
Yeah, you can find me on the Detroit Monitor locally in Michigan, but also on the website, South Florida Tribune. Drill down to the Motor City Tribune, you'll find my column. And at the end of my column is a link to a book I wrote on sports broadcasters, Detroit sports broadcasters on the air. There's a copy of the book that is just above my shoulder here. Anyways, there's a link to purchase that book. You could find me on 108 Stitches and on Fire Up and all kinds of great shows, the Sports Exchange here on the network. Reach me at yahoo.com, or on Twitter, SanGSports99, or on LinkedIn under my name as well.
Okay, Ashton, go ahead.
Other than this great show, most weeks you can search at Ashton_Nix on most social media platforms, or Peak One Sports. I have a few other podcasts going on those websites.
And Ashton, once again, I'd like to thank you very much for your help on social media, helping us spread the content around. All right, Candy, take us home.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last November called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by none other than Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Icorn. It talks about the media and how media has changed over the 40-plus years Scott has been in the business. He's a great storyteller, so go grab your book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can listen to us. Mondays, we talk hockey on Fire Up Florida. Then we talk baseball right here on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesdays, we talk football on Inside the Pigskins. Wednesdays at Sports Exchange. Thursdays, it's Fire Up. Those two shows, you never know what the topics are going to be. Typically sports related, but you just never know. So tune in and find out. Typically, Wednesdays, Scott does Motor City Madmouth Show on nofilter.net. Watch for details when the next episode's coming your way. And you can go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can there's a link to Scott's books. There's also writings of Scott, pictures I've taken, writings of George. And there's a link to our merchandise store where you can buy cool sweatshirts, caps, T-shirts, shorts for South Florida Tribune and for the Motor City Madmouth. Go get an item today. You can also just read all kinds of our content. If you would like to advertise or sponsor one of these great programs, call Scott 954-304-4941. And last but not least, you can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. Anything I missed, Scott?
No, Candy, you're getting better with them every single second. Thank you very much. You do an unbelievable job. You should mention that tomorrow night here on the network, we're going to have Inside the Pigskin, and Candy does a show. Why don't you give everybody a quick overview of what you do before we call it a night?
So Tuesday nights at 7:30, you can find me and my co-host. We are Chicks Talking Sports on Chicks and Salsa, or Three Chicks in a Pod. You just never know which one we're going to do. But typically we've been doing Chicks and Salsa. It's me, Megan Price, who is the queen of hoops. We have Carrie, who is Chiefs Chicks. And then we have Jennifer, and she talks all kinds of sports. She's from the Carolinas. And then, of course, there's me, who talk a lot of Wisconsin and a lot of Florida stuff. So if you like to listen to Chicks Talking Sports, come on over, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. All right, well, that does it for this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Great job to my co-hosts, George Icorn, Eric Katz, as usual, and Ashton Nix. What can I say? You're definitely the best edition we've had all year, and I'm thankful that you're on my team. What can I say? So meanwhile, we appreciate everybody for joining us tonight, and we will see you next Tuesday night or Monday night, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. See, I'm all mixed up where these things are. I just know they're at the beginning of the week. Although we did used to do 108 Stitches Baseball Talk years ago on Tuesday night. Eric ought to know. But meanwhile, it will be on Monday night. So on behalf of George, Eric, and Ashton, my name is Scott. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll catch you the next time. Good night now.
Good night.